right, everybody. It's Big Daddy, and we're here again with Big Daddy and Friends. And I'll tell you, our guest today, you know what? I'm just going to call him America's fullback. Okay? That's the only way I can describe you because, I mean, obviously we've known each other since, our college days. And, but, you're America's football. You're America's fullback. You're the Moose, Daryl Johnston. So everyone say hello to Daryl Johnston. What's up, DJ?
How you doing, Big Daddy?
I'm good, man. You know what? I'll tell you, I'm so happy that that we're chatting, and so many memories come, through my head of thinking when we first met to the time that I've been with you at Super Bowls, I've been with Pro Bowls with you, I've been to, one of the funniest, and I'll tell this story. We've been to one of your former teammates moving from Dallas to Houston. Remember that? That
parts of it.
Yeah, that one and so many other things. But just for everyone, for all the viewers and listeners that are out there, for everyone that doesn't know you, you started, you played your college ball at Syracuse. You guys had a great run there, and I had the misfortune of running into you guys on that 11-0 team that you guys went to played in the Sugar Bowl. That was probably one of the best teams I ever saw in person. You guys were Donnie Mack, and you had the best center in America, John Garrett. my neighbor growing up.
That was our connection. That's our conduit.
Yeah, that's right. That was a lot of people don't realize that I had the luxury of spending that one spring, I think, at Syracuse, because I had gone to prep school and then prep school was done. So I was like, you know what? Let me go up to Syracuse and hang out with those guys. And I finally had to leave because I think I wore my welcome out, and I was worn out from
exactly right.
partaking in Sutter's Mills and all those other fine establishments up there.
Beverages of moderation.
Yes. Well, I'm learning that in my in my older age now. It's instead of eating the 4 slices of pizza, Big Daddy, maybe just have one or don't have any at all. So lean and mean. That's the game plan. So, but anyway, so tell us a little bit about growing up and your upbringing, and what led you from your hometown of Jamesville, I believe it is, right? Or
Youngstown.
And where you grew up, and then you end up going to Syracuse. And go ahead, tell us a little bit.
Yeah, it's it's actually it's kind of interesting when I reflect back on it, and just you kind of pick those key moments in your life. I'm sure a lot of people, when they take the time to reflect back, there's key turning points in your life. And did you make the right decision? If you would have made a different decision, what path would you be on right now? So for me, I came from a very small rural town up in upstate New York. It's as far as you can go up into the northeastern corner or northwestern corner before you're into Canada. So I'm actually 45 minutes north of Buffalo. Football was big up there, small communities. It's a little bit, my wife always teases me. She always says I grew up in Mayberry. It does have that feel to it. So it was a great place to grow up. Work ethic, accountability, a lot of great character values are shaped, very middle class. That was kind of the foundation for me in a lot of the things that I would kind of tap into, during my time leaving home and going to Syracuse and then moving on to the NFL, because it's been a challenging ride. It really has. I think a lot of people look at where you've gotten to from a point of a destination or an endpoint and don't understand all the trials and maybe doubts that happen along the way. And there was a number of them for me, and really kind of starting right out of the gate. I was not heavily recruited. I was trying to get into, some of the big Division III programs, in New York State in the Northeast. I was a good student in high school. So, probably at that time, my dream school was actually Cornell, to go down and play football at Cornell. And actually went down and took a visit there. Maxie Vaughn had just kind of come on as a head coach. They were going through a little bit of a transition.
Pete Noyes, remember him? Pete Noyes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
he
Yes.
was at Cornell.
Yeah, and then while you're at Cornell, the opposite side of the valley is Ithaca, and Ithaca at the time was one of the best Division III programs in the country.
Yeah, they were
Multiple
wrong.
appearances at the Amos Alonzo Stag Bowl. So
Mhm.
while we were at Cornell, we went over to Ithaca, and Jim Butterfield was the head coach at the time. And when we visited with him, he just inquired, who are you looking at? And I kind of went through the list of the big Division III schools that he was very familiar with, the teams that he played against and had to compete against to get to the championship game. And then I said, hey, Syracuse has just kind of come into it here over the last couple of weeks. And, the conversation just paused and he said, Syracuse? You can't play at Syracuse. So that was kind of when the decision was made for me. At that time, and really up until just a few years ago, I was a big prove you wrong type of guy. If you told me there was something I couldn't do, I was going to make you eat your words. So as soon as coach said that to me, I knew where I was going. But I was late in the process. I didn't really think about that until, when I got to Syracuse and you started hearing when all the other contacts were made. So I ended up finding out I was actually the last scholarship given my class year because somebody who had verbally committed to Syracuse changed his mind and was going to go to Penn State. So they had one more scholarship open up, and the consensus from Coach Mack and the staff was, hey, let's give it to the kid from Western New York. We'll keep all the Buffalo alumni off our backs for a couple of years, and we'll have a great practice squad player, as we move forward. So not a lot of expectations from me when I got to Syracuse, and when I was there, I kind of found out why. It was a pretty big leap from my small rural high school football, to Division I football at the collegiate level. So I really struggled. Probably my first year and a half, I doubted myself, whether I'd made the right decision. But as you pointed out, you spent some time with the guys that were up there. It was a great group of guys. I mean, just tremendous, not only tremendous football players, but just tremendous guys. Still very, very close to almost all of them. It's still to this day. So they were great to talk to and to help build your confidence and, kind of hung in there. And, my mom and dad were great. Hey, worst case scenario is, you graduate from college with no debt, that's not a bad thing. And we want you to honor your scholarship. We want you to honor your word. You said you were going to come here, you're going to play football for 5 years. You need to keep your word and going back to, to where I was brought up. So there was no quitting that. And my third year there, Jim Hoffer, came into my life. He became my running backs coach, and Jim and I are still very good friends to this day. Jim really kind of changed my whole perception. Now I had gotten bigger and stronger and faster and was getting closer to being able to compete at the Division I level, through Mike Woysick and his strength program. But Jim was the guy that made football fun for me again. I hadn't really had a whole lot of fun, the first year and a half at Syracuse. So as you pointed out, we got on a great run, had some great guys there, guys that went on and had great NFL careers. I was fortunate and blessed to be drafted by the Cowboys in the second round. But the same thing kind of happened, my first year and a half in the NFL. You kind of exhale, right? Because you think all the hard work is over with. Hey, I finally made it. Everything I've been dreaming about is here. And, I found out pretty quick that the hard work was just beginning, and you had to work harder than you'd ever worked before to stay at that level. So again, for me, another little bit of an adjustment period. And this time it was Norv Turner, Norv Turner coming into my life and bringing in an offense that really kind of fit my skill set at the fullback position. So, I reflect back a lot, and, to be where I am today, to have had the career that I had, the opportunity to call some of the greatest guys to ever play their position in football, not only teammates, but friends, like an Emmitt Smith or a Troy Aikman or a Michael Irvin. That happened because of a few situations in my life and a few people that came into my life. And none bigger than Mike Woysick, the strength coach who was at Syracuse University, Jim Hoffer, who became my running backs coach and really made the game of football fun for me again after it hadn't been for a long time. And then Norv Turner, coming to Dallas and bringing that offense and, that style of play in that really fit my my skill set. If those three guys were not in an intersection in my life, I know for a fact I wouldn't be where I am today, without a doubt. It's not even something I would think about. There's no way. And I wonder if just one of those guys was removed, where I would be. That's how important those three guys were in my life.
Well, Norv is one of my favorites. I mean, I got to meet him when he was down there with you, and we always stayed in touch, and we've run into each other. I mean, one day I'm in San Diego. I'm at the races there at the one of the races that's like the Kentucky Derby out there. And all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Big Daddy!" I turn around, it's Norv. Here's the head coach of, I think he was coaching San Diego at the time. He's yelling out my name across everybody. He's like, don't go over there. Come watch it. I got a box. I'm like, all right, I'll come in there and watch. Opening day at Del Mar. That's where I was at. And I had just, like I said, I turned around after hearing my name get yelled out, and it was him, and I thought he was probably one of the best coaches that, especially with quarterbacks. I mean, what he did, obviously with Troy, and then obviously what he did. I remember he made Alex Smith like he was that missing piece. He was up there in San Francisco, and
Phillip Rivers. Look what he did for Phillip. He was a big part with Phillip. And I remember Frank Gore. We did a San Francisco 49ers game shortly after Norv had left San Francisco. And I literally gave Frank Gore Norv Turner's phone number. Check with Norv. Hey, I'm going to give your number to Frank. Is that cool? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I love Frank. And he said, what's going on? I said, he really needs to speak to you. I mean, Frank was just so frustrated. Exactly. I bet you Norv Turner became Frank Gore's Jim Hoffer. I mean, it seemed at the time that football just wasn't fun for Frank anymore. Yeah. And after everything he'd been through and everything he'd overcome, and to put himself in that position, he needed to speak to Norv. He needed to, to hear those words and get that confidence back with him. So, Norv is just one of those, great, genuine people in the game of football. And, not only quarterbacks, but play caller. I'm not around a lot of different ones. Ernie Zampese was really good. Chan Gailey came in after that. I've been around a few guys at the NFL level. George DeLeon was fantastic, along with Jim Hoffer at Syracuse. Yeah. But you never really get an opportunity to be around him. But Norv on game day, I can't see anybody rivaling how good he was at anticipating, from tendencies and different things, what the defense was going to try to do. And one of the great ones was we were at the Pro Bowl one year, and Merton Hanks came up and he said, hey, we had a blitz on in the championship game, and we had a weakness in our coverage when we did that blitz. He goes, we got home the first time and got some pressure, and then they even got a sack on Troy. He goes, but the next three times we ran it, you threw the ball exactly where we were vulnerable. So what was your audible at the line of scrimmage? What did you see? What was the tell that you knew that blitz was coming? I said, listen, we don't have audibles. We have check with me, so we can go to the line of scrimmage with two plays called. But, at that time, our offense was more of a run-it style offense. We didn't have live audibles at the line of scrimmage. So Merton's like, so you're telling me that you were able, during the course of the game in real time, figure out from a tendency that the blitz could be coming? I said, listen, you don't know how good Norv is. I said, you showed something, either position of the field, down and distance, or both, or multiple things that he put together. And he had that play called himself at those times. It was nothing that Troy was audibling to at the line of scrimmage. So, from a play caller standpoint, I just don't think there's anybody rivaled, during my tenure in the NFL, when you got the game day. He was outstanding.
So one of the things that really I'm curious about, and it has to do with Emmitt Smith, okay? Divine intervention. Tell us about that. Tell us about one of the stories where you're up at Syracuse and you're reading about Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that guy's a stud and this and that. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're in the same backfield. Tell us about that and your relationship. Obviously, I know it, but, let's share that with the viewers and the fans.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was, it was the USA Today back at that time when you're in college, and they.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they had, the top 25 and everything that was going on. It was just the one source at that time that you really got good information about athletics all across the country, from not only the professional level, but down to the collegiate level and actually the high school level.
Yes.
So, I just remember seeing this kid from Escambia like all the time. And I'm just reading about him and just the numbers he put up in high school. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's he's a machine. This is unbelievable. And then he went to Florida, and I just for some reason, it just connected with me, and I continued to follow him, and just was amazed at what he was accomplishing. And then, as you pointed out, a couple of years later, here we are on the same team, and it was the most bizarre thing that I've ever kind of reflected back on, and I think there is some divine intervention in it. There's always been a connection, between the two of us since we've had the opportunity to be teammates and then become really good friends. But yeah, it was bizarre that some kid up in central New York is following some kid down in the panhandle of Florida.
Yeah, in the swamp.
And, 4 or 5 years later, they end up being teammates, in Texas. I mean, how crazy is that? So yeah, I've always, I guess you could say I've been a big Emmitt Smith fan long before I got to share a huddle with him.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. And one of the things that, remember when Emmitt had the good fortune of being on Dancing with the Stars. So I know he had this Emmitt Smith dance-a-thon or gala or something that I guess, did you have anything to do with that, or were you there supporting, or did you tap your way into the event?
No. So he had his first annual Emmitt Smith Award, for the high school athletes in the area. And, he called me up and he said, hey, he goes, this is a crazy ask. He goes, but I can't make it to the dinner for my award that's being presented on the first night. So he goes, I'm having some guys kind of fill in for me. Tim Brown was going to be there. I can't remember who the whole group was, but there was a number of us that were going to kind of, fill in for Emmitt. Mm-hmm. And I said, how can you not be at the dinner for the first annual Emmitt Smith award being given out? He goes, you'll hear about it that night. He goes, I just got to know, can you be there? I'm like, absolutely, I'll be there. So we get there and I see Tim Brown. And I said, do you have any idea why he's not here tonight? He goes, well, you haven't heard? And I'm like, no, he wouldn't share anything with me. He said, I'm going to find out tonight. He goes, well, he took us out to dinner, when he invited us, and he told us what was going on and why he's not going to be here. I said, what's he doing? He goes, he's going on Dancing with the Stars. And I'm like, cool. And Tim Brown's like, no, not cool. Not cool. So he goes, we spent the whole dinner trying to talk him out of going on to Dancing with the Stars. And I'm like, why would you do that? He goes, you ever seen him dance? He can't dance. So it was unbelievable, the whole conversation. We're laughing. And then to see what he does, during the course of the competition, he ends up winning the crystal trophy. So again, I think it just goes to show you, the kind of the metal that he has as part of his fabric. Not the greatest dancer in the world. And you saw that at the beginning. Very coachable. Cheryl did a hell of a job with him and coached him up. But if he commits to something, he's going to get it figured out. And again, I think the biggest thing is he had a great time. He's got a tremendous smile. I think he won over so many fans. There's probably a lot of people that didn't really know a lot about Emmitt Smith before Dancing with the Stars. So it's one of those opportunities for him to kind of cross over out of the sporting world into the real world, general population, and have all these people going, this Emmitt Smith guy is just fantastic. Just what a charismatic smile, what a great personality. So I think he won a lot of people over that way. But it's so funny to kind of think back on that dinner, how nervous everybody was that he had accepted the opportunity, and then to see what he turned it into. Yeah,
no, that's incredible. It's, it's kind of funny. It's like me, I'm the insurance guy. Now I'm rebranding myself over to the entertainment, the interviewing, the journalist. I don't even, it's endless. It's funny because I didn't go to school for that. And then all of a sudden, even yourself, everyone's looking at me like, wait a minute, that's Big Daddy on Fox and Friends. What's he doing? And then, hey, they handed me a mic and they were like, go do it. And I did it, and it's been a hell of a ride, even doing this show, because I know how hard you work. You even got your, you got your coach's drying board behind you. And I have one over here on the side. And sometimes I joke around. I do X's and O's. And I'm like, my brother Jimmy, being a coach, I always joke around with him. I go, I was the one who was destined really to be a coach, but I saw how hard you worked. So I was like, man, but even in this field, you the research that you do and looking up stuff and stats and trying to figure all that out. I mean, it's people watching, they say, wow, is it really that hard? And I will say to people, it is hard.
Yeah, it really is. And you have to have the personality. You've got to be likable. You've got to be, somebody that generates people to come back and see it again. But I get it with the broadcasting. People, it's work every day.
Yeah.
Multiple hours every single day getting ready for it. To me, the biggest thing was early on. I think I was a little bit over prepared. There's a lot of information that's out from Monday to Saturday. Most of the people who are fans of the game are going to consume that already. They already know that. Yeah. The challenge is using that information and then the time you spend with both the teams, talking to the coaches and the players to get an idea how you think the game is going to go. Where are the key matchups? What are some of the things that you consider to be important during the course of the game? And then, leave enough empty space up here in the brain to be able to move with the game on Sundays and not have some preconceived notion of what you think is going to happen. It happened to me one game where I went into a game as confident as I ever was that I thought I knew how the game was going to play out. And it went the other way by the end of the first quarter. And I found myself chasing it the whole day, just trying to figure out why it hadn't gone the way I thought it was, instead of telling the fans, here's what's happening right now. So for me, one of the biggest things was, early on with the work ethic that I had was finding that balance for me that was comfortable, where I did enough preparation that I was ready for the game, but I wasn't over prepared where I wasn't going to be able to be flexible in my thought process during the course of the game to be able to adjust and move and be able to hopefully, teach and entertain the fans who are watching.
One of my other favorite stories in relation to you is when you took us back to your hometown. And then we ended up going into Buffalo, and we went to the Anchor Bar.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "How can I take your order?" Yeah, we'll have 200 wings. And the guy looked at us like we all had 4 heads. But, we were the biggest dudes in the place. So we're like, yeah, just get the 200 wings and put them on that table over there. We'll play pool while we'll wait for the food to come out. So
the appetizer, the 200 appetizer. Because you got to have the beef on wick. You got to have the beef on whack if you come to Buffalo too. So you don't want to get too full on the wings.
Got it. I gotta put that in the memory bank. I unfortunately with everything going on, I haven't been able to get up to Buffalo. I've been the last 2 years I was able to get up there, and
yeah, it's a great town. It really is. I mean, it's to be able to grow up there. The fan base is. Unfortunately, 2 of the Super Bowls that we were in were against Buffalo. I really wish the city had experienced a victory during those 4 years. I really, that first one against the Giants was the one I thought they were going to get. The following year, that Washington team was awful good. I think that was
they laid it to them too.
Yeah, that was a really, really good football team. That may be one of my favorite victories, all time. When I think back on what were the games that I always remember. In that year, we had played Washington when they were 11-0 down at RFK, and we beat them 24-21. We got on the field with a little over 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter at 24-21, and we kept the ball the entire time. Our offense never left the field. We killed the whole clock. So for me, to be able to knock off, Washington, at RFK that year, and a very, very good team is always one of my biggest victories. But the Buffalo fan base is so good. They're so true. I get this, some of these fan bases around the country, they're very fickle. Yeah. If you're winning, hey, we got your back. But the tough times, you kind of wonder if they're still behind you. But you talk about Jets fans and Bills fans and Browns fans. Those are 3 franchises that have really struggled, and their fan bases have stayed behind them, all the time. And Buffalo's like that. And it's still one of my favorite T-shirts you ever see is at the airport in Buffalo. They actually have a T-shirt in there that you can buy. If tailgating were a sport, we'd be world champions. And that's the absolute
They
truth.
do.
Those people are unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, they do. They know how to let it rip up there, man. Especially, you're driving into that stadium. All of a sudden, you see all those homes, and there's like 20 cars parked on everyone's lawn. And I'm like, well, I guess they're paying for their spring landscaping bill because everything's torn up from all the cars and trucks tearing everything up.
It's got a little Lambo feel to it when you drive it. The
yeah.
Lambo's very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I know you've spoken publicly in regards to CTE and the youth playing football and parents being nervous. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just don't know why everybody's come after the game of football. It happened about now probably like 12 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good that's come out of it. I don't want to make it sound like all of a sudden everybody came after the game of football without warranted reason. And when you talk about player safety and health, that's a pretty important thing. What it's done, it's made the helmet a lot better. And if it's a lot better at the professional level, that means it's a lot better all the way down through the ladder. So down to the collegiate game, the high school game, and down to the Pop Warner level. Everything's gotten a little bit better. Everybody's a little bit smarter. I think the coaching has improved. I think that's one of the biggest things. One of the things that Tom Landry always talked about is he felt that boys shouldn't play tackle football until they were 13. They kind of gotten to the point where puberty was about to kick in because you always had that one kid at 10, 11, 12 years old who was a little bit more mature than everybody else. And by age or weight, if you get those guys on the same field, there was potential for something bad to happen. So, I get the reasoning behind it, but I think there's been some good things that have been put in place. But there's a lot of statistics out there that people need to be aware of. At the time when I was doing that, football was number 3 when you talked about sports-related concussions. Far and away, number 1 was ice hockey. I think it makes a lot of sense why that's true. After that was wrestling, makes sense. And then after that, if you took the girls' game and combined it with the boys' game, soccer and football were number 3 for sports-related concussions. So, there was this huge emphasis because of the style of the game, and, having it be a collision sport, and then some of the horror stories about guys who had CTE or had struggled in the latter years of their lives started to come out, and they kind of made it mainstream that it was happening to everybody. And, for me, I took you through my life journey and what the game of football has afforded me. And I've always felt that I owed it to the game to be an ambassador. So I wanted to get in and kind of take a look at the data that was there and then make my decision. Do I support the findings that say that football is dangerous, or do I support the findings that say it's not as dangerous as some of the other sports that are there, at the intramural level. So I just started to talk about football, being one of those games that taught me more on the field than I ever learned in a classroom. I've used the things I've learned from my coaches probably more than I've learned from my teachers. Now, I haven't gone into a traditional business setting, so that's probably a unique set of circumstances for me, but the game of football has been great. And I just wanted to make sure that we didn't get some information out there that scared parents away. And that's what I was starting to get. I literally had parents coming to me saying, I'm not letting my son play football this year. He's been playing for 4 years, but not anymore. And I would just tell them, here's some places to find your research. I'm not telling you not to make that decision, but I am telling you to go out and get yourself informed and see if you can make a decision that you're comfortable with. Again, when we get out of the sporting world, the number 1 reason for concussions in the ER for kids are falls. Did I have a lot of concussions? I had more growing up as a boy than I ever did playing football. I fell off my bike. I fell out of a tree. We used to freeze the backyards and play hockey. So I had 2 really bad ones playing hockey in a frozen backyard without a helmet. You're not playing with helmets on at that time. Yeah. So I probably had 5 or 6 really good concussions as a boy growing up while that brain is still developing. So as we talk about the brain not fully developing until age 24, 25, when we talk about the temporal lobes, just imagine from 8 to 14, having some severe concussions. So I just think it's one of those situations in life that I don't ever want to live afraid of things, in fear of things. And if you educate yourself and find the data, I think you'll get to a point where you'll feel comfortable with what you choose to do. And that's what I just wanted to encourage parents to do. I didn't want to influence them one way or the other, but there were some voices out there that were very loud, and they were kind of, steering the narrative, and the narrative became very, very negative on the game of football. And I just felt that wasn't fair. So I was just trying to encourage parents, to go out and do their own research. And if you come to the conclusion that you still feel football is too unsafe for your son to play, that's fine. I would never force anybody to be out there, but I just saw so many advances in the game. The game is so much safer today than it was when you and I played. And that's the biggest thing that I tell parents is, listen, the game today is tenfold safer than it was when I played. We had the stupidest drills in the world at practices where you had 8, 10, 12-year-old boys, bull in the ring. Oklahoma drill. I mean, they were so dumb. So we've gotten so much smarter. You have to learn technique, but you don't always have to be button heads, especially at a young age. And I coached my son. There are certain boys that aren't ready for the game yet either. And I think we have to have that dialogue with parents as well. If I'm coaching young boys and there's somebody on my team that I don't feel is quite ready yet for football, then I think I'd be comfortable having that conversation with the mom and the dad. Yeah. And there was a boy on our team, and I told him, I said, listen, it's not so much concern for his health, it's also concern for the other boy's health out there. Because if he's not doing his job, that leaves them open to an opportunity to have an injury, and then that's on me. That's my responsibility to make sure every boy that takes that field is as safe as he can possibly be while he enjoys this fantastic game. So we had a rating system down here in the Dallas area when we put our teams together when the boys were young. And I suggested to the director of the YMCA that, we should have an incomplete, grade at this time. And instead of having, as we introduced the boys into tackle, continue to have flag as a transition. There's some boys here that are of the age they could play tackle, but you know what? They probably would do better to be down here in flag for 1 more year, 2 more years, and allow that to happen. So we can get smarter. We have gotten smarter. And the biggest thing for me was some of the programs that the NFL put in place. Number one is really educating and giving young coaches opportunities to understand what's smart and what's not smart when you're coaching, boys that are 8, 10, 12 years old. A bad coach in the game of football can scare a young boy away from playing that game ever again. And I've seen it happen. I've seen an 8-year-old boy who ended up being a very good athlete scared away from the game of football because he had a bad coach. And that's the thing that's disappointing to me. And I think it's one of the areas that there's been tremendous strides made is the education and the teaching and training for the coaches, the improvement in equipment, the changes in the rules. And one of the great things that you're learning from the NFL now is these concussion numbers start to trend down a little bit in the NFL. What we're seeing is the respect from the other players. How many opponents are going up to the official and saying, hey, you got to check 24. He really stumbled getting up. I mean, there's a genuine concern, for not only your teammate, but for your opponent. And you know how it was when we played. You could take a guy out, you were taking a guy out. I mean, it's the old Al Davis, right? The quarterback must go down and he must go down hard. I mean, that was, those were some of the clips that we had when we were playing the game during our age growing up. I mean, it was a violent collision sport.
I always remember watching Jack Tatum. Boy, that guy laid people out. Wow. He was like an executioner.
Yeah, well, that's the collision with Daryl Stingley, that led to his paralysis. Yeah. So, and that's the thing, some of the rule changes that have been put in place, and I know the one that's probably frustrating to a lot of fans out there is the helmet to helmet contact.
Yeah.
And there's some during the course of the game. Listen, I've been doing games for 20 years, and I've seen this progression to this point. And this year, there's been a few that I didn't agree with it, but I do overall understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
For the safety of the player, they're trying to get that posture out where your neck is in a position for potentially catastrophic injury. And so if we can do anything to prevent that stuff from happening, is it going to be perfect? Nothing is perfect. But if we're leaning towards the health, safety, and well-being of the guys playing the sport, then that's not a bad thing.
So what's in the future? What do you got lined up?
I don't know. I mean, I've really enjoyed this season with Kevin Burkhardt, and the opportunity to work with Kevin has been a blast. I've always enjoyed. I've been blessed. I mean, I tell people all the time, I said, listen, here's who I've worked with in broadcasting. My first job was with Bill McAtee. I got to work with Bill McAtee for one game. And then there was a situation that allowed me to be elevated in my position with CBS my first year out. And I got to work with Kevin Harlan for the rest of the year. High definition TV was coming out that year. So Kevin and I and our group got to do Thanksgiving, the AFC Championship game, Ravens Raiders, and then Super Bowl, Giants Ravens. That was my first year in broadcasting, and I'm doing the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl for high definition, a separate broadcast, but a broadcast nonetheless. Then I leave and go to Fox, and I get to work with Dick Stockton for 6 years. Then I'm with Kenny Albert, worked with Chris Myers last year, and now I've got an opportunity to work with Kevin. So, I've learned a ton from all those people. So I really still do enjoy it. I love the opportunity to talk to the coaches and the players. But one of the things that I started looking at about 5-6 years ago was kind of the front office opportunity.
I was actually, and you know what's funny, you bring that up. I was actually going to ask you about the San Antonio thing and the Dallas Renegades. Mm-hmm. I know you were leaving the cleats behind and putting on the suit and the fancy hanky to be.
I still have that. Pocket square.
That's right. Picking the players and. How's that going?
Well, you always want to see if everything you've learned and experienced through the course of your football career. We all have that desire to see if all that knowledge can we put together a championship roster.
Yeah.
Ozzie Newsome is really the kind of the leader, for all of us that played the game and what he's been able to do with the Baltimore franchise. You've seen John Elway do it. John Lynch is there now. I started looking at it, several years ago. I'd go up, and Andy Reid was great. He'd let me come up to Kansas City. I'd spend a couple of days there and just kind of watch and learn and talk to John Dorsey. And
John and I talked about John and I we talked about you. I was up there at training camp 2 years ago, and he was like, "Hey man, the Moose is trying to take my job."
No, not
he was only kidding around, but he was like, "Yeah, man, he's going to get into the GM thing," and I was like, "Well, he's smart enough, been around enough great talent to realize what talent is and what talent isn't." So
I can't use their vocabulary, all the stuff that the wording that scouts use, sudden quickness and short space dynamics, but I know when I see it, I know what's right. For me, it's just kind of learning exactly what it is. But, in San Antonio, it was fun because we had allocations. So we were working with certain schools, and then we were working with certain professional teams. Mm-hmm. So I actually had Dallas, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Houston were the teams that we were allocated to. And that was another opportunity to kind of visit with John and everything there while he was in Kansas City. And really for me, that was, here's your pool of players. Now go evaluate these guys and pull the best ones out. So that was kind of, not as challenging as having it being the entire, country where you were going to be able to look at. The XFL was just that. So for me to be able to be down in San Antonio and kind of a transition into building a roster from a pool and then going to the next step of really kind of looking at it all across the country and trying to assemble it. And I've had some great help. Bob Morris is a guy that's down here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I got a call from Gil Brandt as soon as I got the job in San Antonio. And he said, "Hey, listen, there's a scout who just got let go from San Francisco who would be great for you to work with side by side." And Bob Morris was, he played in Colorado. He was a coach for 19 years at the collegiate level. Before he became a scout for 20 years at the professional level. So he sees it from both sides, coach, scout. I see it from both sides as player, scout.
Yeah.
So we were able to really kind of connect. He was my bridge between all the vocabulary and how I need to speak nowadays. And it was just really, really important. He was with me in San Antonio and he was with me in Dallas. And I wish we could have finished San Antonio. I think we had a really good team. I really think we had the makings of a championship team there. We were all excited to play Orlando again, who beat us early in the year. And then in Dallas, we were just getting ready to kind of turn things around. We'd had a slow start. We're struggling a little bit in some areas, but felt like we'd gotten everything worked out. So the disappointing thing is you never got to see all the way through the season.
Yeah, the finished product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the big thing is turning around now to year 2. Okay, where was I not right in my decision making? What did I miss? What can I add to what we have that's good? So I never got that opportunity to get to the second year. And really that's what I need to show. I need to show the ability to have no ego, to be able to take that team that maybe fell a little bit short and get all the areas fixed that struggled the year before. That to me is still the most exciting part about it. And I haven't had that opportunity yet. So, but I'd still love that opportunity. The XFL is going to come back up online. There's a position there at the league level that I may throw my hat into the ring for. There's a ton of GM jobs that are open right now. Does a franchise really trust a guy from television, to come in and be their general manager? It would be a hard sell. I think it needs to be something similar to what John had with Kyle Shanahan. I think that model that they've put together, the head coach and the general manager coming in at the same time, on the same page, seeing things the same way, being not only good workers together, but good friends together. I think that what they were able to do in San Francisco as quickly as they were able to do it shows that there's a lot of benefit if you can get a GM and a head coach to come in at the same time that have the same vision and the same values coming in.
Well, I know a couple of owners, and I can always put a little whisper or bug in somebody's ear,
Yeah, but that I may have to call you up on that, but I think that takes my favorite list. But my favorite number goes above 500 on that one, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we'll be doing the favors till we're in our 90s. But for you, I would do it without any favor. But well, listen, Daryl, I can't thank you enough for being on. It's I'll tell you, it's like I'm giddy and I'm like a little kid because I'm like, wow, I got the Moose coming on. And I was telling people for the last 3 or 4 days, I'm like, I'm interviewing Daryl Johnston. I'm interviewing Daryl Johnston. Everybody's like, how'd you get him? How'd you get him? I'm like, yeah, we're friends. And I asked him and he said yes.
How many times do I get to return a favor to you? I'm always the one asking you for the favor. So the opportunity for me to actually repay a favor to you, how can I say no to that?
No, well, listen, you know what? We're friends for life. And again, thank you for the time. And please send my best to Diane.
Absolutely.
And happy holidays to you and the whole family. And when we get the other thing up and running, I hope to have you on there too. So
please do. Please do.
So have a great rest of the season as well. And from Big Daddy and Friends, Daryl Johnston, thank you again. And to all the viewers and fans out there, make sure you check out this interview. We're on Amazon. We are at sportsnut.com, and that's spelled N-A-U-T. We're also on Spotify, and the list is growing and growing and growing. And the, YouTube, Big Daddy's face is going to be everywhere. I'm no oil painting, but at least I have fun, So once again, Big Daddy and Friends over and out, and I'll see everybody soon. And again, Daryl, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You got it. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too, my man. Be well.